Welcome back to 5-Minute Sermons. We are coursing right along in 1 Peter chapter 4. We're going to be in 1 Peter 4:7 through 11. And I love this passage because it's very Ecclesiastes-like. One of my favorite passages in Ecclesiastes, it kind of starts out in a similar manner. All has been heard, the end of matters is at hand. And Peter gives a similar statement. The end of all things is at hand. Therefore, be self-controlled and sober-minded for the sake of your prayers. Above all, keep loving one another earnestly, since love covers a multitude of sins. Show hospitality to one another without grumbling. As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. Now, we'll get into verse 11 here shortly, but as we look at that, since Christ died for us, we must have these things because Christ has made us his own. We are to be, we are to keep, we are to show, we are to serve. I love this section. It's one of the most condensed sections of one anothering. And so because Christ did what he did for us, we are to be what? Be self-controlled, be sober-minded for the sake of your prayers. I don't know about you, but it is distinctly difficult to pray when we are not self-controlled, when we are given to our passions, when we are given to our desires. And it is difficult to pray when we are not sober-minded. It is difficult to focus. Prayer is a discipline of our Christian life. It is a discipline of our faith. And it is not always going to be easy. But the end of the matter is, be self-controlled, be sober-minded, so that you can pray. Above all, keep loving one another earnestly. Man, and that's rough sometimes. That is distinctly difficult. But rough and difficult does not excuse the necessity of, above all, keep loving one another. Fight for this. It's good. Fight for this, my friends. In Christ, fight for this, since love does what? Well, since love covers a multitude of sins. The love of Christ covers a multitude of sins, and our love for one another leads us to forgive. Very often we fail to see the connection of love and forgiveness. We might have a strong affection for someone, but we have a hard time forgiving them. But love and forgiveness is something that we should be showing because Christ suffered for our sake. The next one says show. We are to show hospitality to one another without grumbling. Without grumbling about these people being in our house all the time, without grumbling about the things that people do and don't do. When you have the mixing of households, you have different ways of householding. I know I just made that word up, but you get what I mean. You have different orders that people have and different expectations. Shoes on in the house or shoes off in the house? How do we take care of our garbage? How do we take care of our dishes? Who are the main servants in the home? We may have major disagreements over this. However, even with the different households gathering together, we do what? We show hospitality without grumbling. As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another. Your gift is not for you. It is for someone else. It is for one another. My gift is not for me. It is for one another. So take your gift that God has given you and serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. Now, this varied grace that is given to us by God means that according to the different gifts and the different measures and the different circumstances, and so the place that you're at and the life that you lead and have, God has given grace according to where you're at. And maybe even different grace for where someone else is at. And according to God's varied grace, take the gift God's given you. Use it for the sake of others. Whoever speaks is one who speaks oracles of God. Whoever serves is one who serves by the strength that God supplies, in order that in everything God may be glorified through Jesus Christ. You ever want to know where in the Bible it tells us to live exclusively as followers of Christ for the glory of Christ? Well, that's right there. We take the gifts that God has given us to be used for the glory of God and the benefit of others. Love one another with the gifts that God has given you. Christian, how are you taking what God has given you and provided to you to love your brother in Christ, to serve them according to God's very grace? May we love one another in such a way because Christ has loved us. God bless you, my friends. We'll catch you next time.